Today, we're jumping right into the world of business law.
Welcome to Quick Course Digest. Look, whether you're just starting out with a brand new idea or you've been in the game for years, getting a handle on business law, it's not just about keeping yourself out of hot water. It's really about building a strong, successful company from the ground up.
Okay, so you've got this killer idea, right? You're motivated, you're ready to create something amazing. That's awesome. But here's the thing. You can't really win the game of business if you don't know the rules. And that's exactly what business law is. It's the playbook, the essential guide for anyone stepping into the arena.
So here's what we're going to walk through in this explainer. First, we'll lay the groundwork with the foundation, what law even is. Then we'll get into the blueprint, which is all about choosing your business structure. After that, it's the rule book for your day-to-day operations. We'll also cover the referee, or how to handle disputes. And finally, we'll wrap up with the conscience, thinking about law, ethics, and responsibility.
All right, let's get right into it. Section 1, the foundation. Before we can even begin to talk about business law, we kind of have to take a step back and ask a much bigger question. What even is law, anyway?
Well, in the simplest terms, law is basically a set of rules that a government authority enforces. You can think of it as the baseline, the absolute minimum standard of behavior we all agree on to keep things orderly and, protect people's rights. It's everything from making sure a contract means something to stopping people from hurting each other.
But, and this is where it gets super interesting, that simple definition is just scratching the surface. People have been arguing about what law really is for centuries. Is it just about power? Whatever the person in charge says goes. That's one theory. Or is it only the rules that are written down, with ethics being a totally separate thing? That's legal positivism. Then you have the legal realists who'd say, hey, the written rules don't matter as much as the judge who's deciding the case. And on the other end, you've got natural law, which is this idea that we all have certain basic rights that no human-made law can take away. Thinking about these different angles really helps you understand why the law isn't always so black and white.
Okay, so we've got a handle on the big ideas behind what law is. Now, let's bring it back to business and get practical. It's time to talk about the blueprint, choosing your business's structure.
And I'm not kidding. This is probably one of the biggest decisions you'll make as a business owner. Seriously, it affects everything. How you're taxed, whether your personal stuff is on the line if things go south, even how you can get funding to grow. You've got to get this right.
So let's break down the big four. You've got your sole proprietorship, super simple to start, but there's a huge catch. Your personal assets are totally exposed. A partnership? Kind of the same deal, just with more people. Now, the LLC, or limited liability company, is super popular for a reason. It shields your personal assets and gives you this great pass-through taxation. That just means the business itself doesn't pay tax. The profits just pass through to you, and you pay tax on it once. Simple. Then there's the big one, the corporation. It also protects you, but you run into this thing called double taxation. Think about it. The corporation earns a profit and pays taxes on it. Then, when it pays you a dividend from what's left, you have to pay taxes on that income again. It gets taxed twice. So yeah, each of these is like a different tool in a toolbox. You got to pick the right one for the job.
All right, you've picked your structure, you've got your blueprint. So what about the daily grind? What rules do you have to follow every single day? That brings us to the rule book. It's easy to think of law as this abstract thing, but it's not. It's woven into everything you do. In accounting, you've got laws like Sarbanes-Oxley making sure your books are honest. In finance, the Truth in Lending Act means you have to be upfront about credit terms. When it comes to management and hiring, the Civil Rights Act is huge, preventing discrimination. And in marketing, the FTC Act is there to stop you from making false claims. Literally, every department has a rule book they need to follow.
But, business isn't always smooth sailing. What happens when a contract gets broken or people just can't agree? Well, that's when you need a referee. Let's talk about resolving disputes.
So if you can't just talk it out and solve the problem, things might end up in court. This whole process is called litigation. It kicks off when one side files a formal complaint. Then comes a really important part called discovery. This is where both sides have to lay all their cards on the table and share evidence. A lot of cases get settled here, but if they don't, you're headed to trial. After all the arguments, a verdict is given, and even then, it might not be over. The side that loses can often appeal to a higher court to try and get the decision overturned.
But listen, going to court is a huge deal. It's public, it's expensive, and it takes forever. Thankfully, it's not the only way. There's something called Alternative Dispute Resolution, or ADR. Think of it as settling things in a conference room instead of a courtroom. Methods like mediation or arbitration are way faster, they're private, and they're usually a lot cheaper. Plus, they can save a business relationship that a messy public fight would probably destroy.
Okay, for our last section, let's pull the camera way back and look at the big picture. Let's talk about the conscience, where law, ethics, and responsibility all come together. So here's a classic, really powerful idea from the economist Milton Friedman. He basically argued that a business has one and only one social responsibility: to make as much money as possible for its owners, the shareholders. Now, he wasn't saying to break the law, you have to play by the rules. But beyond that, the goal is profit. That's it. This is the ultimate shareholder-first way of thinking.
But there's another way to look at it, and it's become really popular. It's called stakeholder theory. This idea says, hang on, a company's responsibility is way bigger than just its shareholders. It owes something to its employees, its customers, its suppliers, even the community it operates in. The thinking is that society gives companies special perks like limited liability. So in return, companies have a duty to consider their impact on, well, everyone.
And this really gets at a key difference, right? The difference between just following the law and actually being ethical. Legal compliance, that's the floor. It's doing the bare minimum not to get fined. For example, the law might say your factory can dump X amount of gunk into the river. Legal compliance is dumping exactly X amount. But ethical excellence? That's choosing to invest in new tech to dump way less than the legal limit because you know it's the right thing to do for the environment and the town. And you know what? In the long run, that ethical approach often builds way more trust and value. So that leaves us with this huge, central question that's at the very heart of business. What is a company's real purpose? Is it just a machine designed to make money for its owners as long as it stays within the lines? Or does it have a bigger, deeper responsibility to the society that lets it thrive in the first place? There's no easy answer here, but it's a question that every single person in business has to wrestle with.